Well, today's episode is a lot personal. If you follow me on social media, you know that I recently moved, and I'm sharing with you today 5 life lessons that I learned from a nightmare move. It really was a nightmare. Nothing went according to plan. Nothing. Like, I can't think of one thing that went according to plan. But I'm going to be sharing with you today 5 life lessons that I'm choosing to take from this nightmare move of mine. But before we get started with the episode, I just wanted to remind you to please subscribe, comment, like, all of the things. It makes sure that first of all, you get to hear every time that I share a new episode, but also helps other people discover me and other people discover the nightmare that was my move. So please like, please subscribe, and every week I'll be publishing a brand new episode. Hopefully, some of it is useful information, even if it is about my house move. But in all seriousness, I actually did learn some stuff about myself and also just about life in general. The very first thing that I learned is that life doesn't always go according to plan. I know, shocker, breaking news. But here's how it relates to my move. So initially, when we made the decision to move, right away, literally within a week of that decision, I found the perfect place. It was perfect. It checked all the boxes. It was in our old neighborhood. All the things that we didn't have in the place that we had before, this place had. And so, of course, we were like, oh, put in an offer. Let's go. And we were so excited to put in an offer. We were the first people who had seen this place. And we put in an offer for what they were asking because we really didn't want to, get in the whole negotiation thing. And we didn't want to lose it because it's a super hot market right now. Put in the offer, signed all the paperwork, and they responded, asked some additional questions and things like that. And everything was all systems go. Like, we were all excited. They'd said verbally yes. And I went to bed one night on a Sunday night, all excited because we were starting to make plans because we're gonna move. And then I woke up on a Monday morning, not how you want to wake up on a Monday morning, to an email from the realtor saying they had changed their minds. They had been made an even higher offer, and they had, without even consulting us or giving us an opportunity to counter, they had accepted that offer and signed overnight. And I was absolutely gutted. Like, I was just so crushed. I'll admit, I did cry because I had moved into this place. And so we had to go looking. But here's the great thing. In everything that happens, no matter how difficult, no matter how dark, there always is a silver lining. What ended up happening was we couldn't find anything in the neighborhood that we were in. And so we had to look at other neighborhoods that we hadn't considered. And we ended up finding what is going to be our perfect new home in 18 months. It's not yet constructed, and there's some delays with permits and all of the things because, the world is going on. And so we're in this position where it's like, okay, we get to build this house and get to put our mark on it and say what we want, what we don't want. But we had this space of 18 months while they're building this house that we had to figure out. So I had to go looking for a rental place. And it was not easy. And we wanted, now that we're moving into this new neighborhood, to find something that would allow us to experience the neighborhood, get familiar with the neighborhood before our house is ready. So I went looking for apartments, couldn't find anything. We were looking for days and days, couldn't find anything. And then eventually, just on a whim, a realtor that we're working with, we actually weren't even really working with him. We just met him briefly at a restaurant of all places. He called up and said, hey, I know someone who's just listed their place for rent. It's not the size that you're looking for. It's smaller, but it's in a perfect location. I think you'd love it. And so we're like, okay, we'll go look at it. And I came to look at it without, like, I really, to be quite honest, was thinking, I'm not going to like it. I don't want to like it because it's smaller than what I want. It doesn't check all my boxes. And we walked in the door. And oh my gosh, the view is amazing. We have the most phenomenal view to a lake. And here's the thing that literally it made me realize is that sometimes the thing that you want shows up, but it doesn't look how you imagined it would look. And that, if for me, the lesson was be open. Be open to exploring new neighborhoods. Be open to exploring things that maybe don't check all the boxes, but that really presents a new opportunity for you to experience something different. So the number one lesson that I learned is things won't always work out exactly as you planned, but be open. The second thing that I learned is that everything always takes longer than you think it'll take. Oh my goodness. I thought when I started packing that how hard could it be to pack for 2 people? Literally, there are 2 of us who live in this place. How hard could it be? Apparently, it is quite hard. Apparently, we had a lot of stuff. And so it took way longer than I expected for us to pack. And then when the movers came to move us, it took way longer than they expected for them to load up their van. And what happened was, in the building, we're renting an apartment. In the building that we're going to, they have really strict condo rules. And they give you a window in which you can move. And then after that, they shut you off. They shut down the elevator. And by the time we got to the new place, because also the rental van got stuck in traffic, by the time we got to the new place, we had an hour left on our move-in window of the 3 hours that they'd given us. And when we arrived, they said, sorry, there is no way that you can offload in an hour, and so you can't move in today. What? Are you kidding me? We have like a moving van full of all our stuff. How can you not let us move in? Long story short, they said, no. And so we ended up being in a situation where the movers had to take our stuff in their truck back to their depot overnight and then come back the next day to offload. But here's the thing, is that I learned that, first of all, it is what it is. I just had to accept what it was. But to recognize that no matter how well of a plan you have, sometimes things will just take longer. It doesn't mean they're not going to happen. It just means it might take longer than how long you think it'll take. So we ended up moving in, but it took longer. We ended up moving in the next day. But you know what? It is what it is. Accept the fact that sometimes things take longer. It's not a reason for you to give up on your goals. It's not a reason for you to give up on your dreams. It's not a reason for you to give up on your move. It just means it's going to take a little bit longer. The third thing that I learned from my move is that you really need to care for yourself when you're in the midst of change, when you're going through something that is a big fundamental shift, or you know what? It doesn't even have to be a big thing. Self-care is so important because when we're going through change, when we're going through stressful things, when there's lots happening in our lives, the very first thing that goes out of the window is self-care. But if anything, that's when we actually need to be doubling down on taking care of ourselves. So I ended up feeling really unwell because, well, I wasn't taking care of myself. And so what I want to share with you is that when you're going through change, whatever it is, make sure that you have a plan in place to care for yourself. And so when I did eventually kind of sort of figure this out, what I realized was I wasn't drinking enough water. So I hadn't planned to have bottles of water with me. I wasn't eating properly because we're having long stretches of, just trying to power through packing boxes or unpacking boxes. And what I realized is I wasn't being good to myself and I was starting to not feel good. I wasn't feeling my best. And so I let go of the perfectionism and I was like, you know what? We're going to eat takeout for the next 7 days. I'm just going to give myself that space of not having to think of all of these things. And so I made sure that I ordered tons of water, got delivered to the house to make sure that I was hydrated. But then I also just gave myself the grace of, you know what? If we're eating takeout, it is what it is. I tried my best when it came to caring for my body by making space every day for meditation, starting every single day with meditation and setting an intention for the day because I thought that was really important. So every day I made 5 minutes. I was like, even if it's just 5 minutes, to care for my mind, to care for myself, to set an intention for the day. And so the third thing is make self-care a priority when you're in the midst of change. If anything, double down on the self-care. The fourth thing that I learned as part of this move is that asking for help is not a bad thing. There is no shame in asking for help. I'm very much someone who's I'll do it myself. And yes, I subscribe to the everything is figure outable school. But at the same time, sometimes being kind to yourself means asking for help. And what I learned as well by asking for help from my friends, from my coworkers, from my team, was that people want to be asked to help you. People want to know how they can help you, and they don't always know how. And so with this move, that was my number one mantra is how can I make this easy for myself, and how can I ask for help? And so I found that people, like I said, literally were like, how can I help you? Like, what can I do? And so there is no shame, amigos, in asking for help. No shame at all. Ask for help. And then the last thing that I learned, the number 5 thing that I learned from my recent move is that even in the midst of challenge, even in the midst of change, even in the midst of everything seemingly going wrong, you can find joy. So I told you about how we weren't allowed to move our stuff in because we'd missed the window. And so it meant that we had an overnight where we didn't have any furniture, didn't have anything. But we chose to have fun. And so what my husband and I did was we went and we got a takeout dinner and we bought a couple of candles and we sat on the floor and ate our dinner. We had a romantic candlelit dinner sitting on the floor eating out of takeout containers. And I can honestly tell you that it was the most fun we'd had in a long time. It just felt so playful, so different. And even in the move itself, even when we were told we couldn't move, I was able to find joy in that and to have a joke with the person who was the concierge person who had to be the bearer of the news that we couldn't move in, and to laugh about the fact that, hey, can I come and stay at your house? And, some people made jokes about, hey, can I come stay at your house? And also kind of just realizing that things, if it's hard, it is hard, and you can choose to make it miserable, or you can choose to look for lighter moments. You can choose to find ways that you can find joy even in the most challenging of times. So those are the 5 things that I learned from my recent move, my recent traumatic move, is that number 1, things don't always look how they're supposed to or how you want them to look, but sometimes it presents a new opportunity for you. Number 2, things are always going to take longer than you think they will. Doesn't mean they're not going to happen. It just means that they're taking longer than you thought they would. Number 3 is double down on the self-care when you're going through challenging things. It really becomes even more important for you to take care of you. Number 4 is all about ask for help and ask yourself, how can I make this easier? And number 5, even in challenges, even in moves, you can always find joy. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for allowing me to indulge in sharing the trauma of my move. I hope that those 5 life lessons, even though, of course, for me, they were about my recent move, that they can apply to any area of your life, any time that you're going through something challenging. And I always, as I remind you, want to say that you are worthy. You are worthy to be, to do, to have anything your heart desires.